everyone. Back on again. I have a guest with me this morning. I will introduce in a minute, but for now, if you're joining us live and you're wondering what we're here to talk about, come on, say hello, and let us know who is listening. If you're watching on the replay, please do again come and let us know who's listened, because we'd absolutely love to know. And as we go along, if you have a question for my guest Liz, or myself, or if you just want to have some input on the conversation, please do use the comments box, and we'd absolutely love to hear from you. So joining me this morning is Elizabeth Willetts, or Liz, from Investing in Women. And Liz is one of my clients, and I'm actually working with her at the moment to launch something really exciting. And we wanted to share it with you. So Liz's business, Investing in Women, is all about shining a light on the benefits of flexible working for both employees and employers, and really all about providing opportunities for women or parents that have children, that having children doesn't need, when you need more flexibility, you don't need to be set back in your career. So Liz is wanting to work with those people that actually, just because they've had a child doesn't mean that they're not ambitious anymore, that they don't want to get ahead in their career. And just because they might need flexible working doesn't mean that they can still achieve that. So that's what Liz is here to talk about today. I know that there's a lot of you watching that have been in a situation before where you maybe have had a baby, and actually your workplace just isn't equipped to have flexible working. It isn't equipped to give you part-time hours. It isn't equipped to let you be, have the work-life balance of being, a great employee, a manager, or advancing in your career, but also being able to take your kids to school and pick them up and deal with all that stuff as well. That's what Liz is here to talk about today. So if you're interested in learning more about Liz after the conversation, please do go and connect with her. Without further ado, introduce Liz from Investing in Women. Liz, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and what Investing in Women is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Investing in Women is launching in a few weeks, and it aims to connect forward-thinking businesses within financial and professional services with very, very talented people, because I know that there are so many talented parents out there that are looking for flexible and fulfilling work within those sectors. So like we said, just because you've had children doesn't mean that you gave up on ambition. And I honestly believe that, you're too talented for all your talent to go to waste. So yeah, that's the aim. It's a job board for people looking for flexible work and part-time work within those sectors.
Fantastic. And it's well needed, isn't it? Because obviously we've got an experience being mums, of knowing that, there aren't a lot of opportunities for people, especially even these days, for people to be a mum, but also have ambition and progress in their career at the same time. Willing to put their child in full-time childcare, or kind of parent side, or alternatively be working all hours God's end at night, and not getting that work-life balance. Why do you think that is?
I do you know what? I think it's because our working environment, so the standard 8-hour day came in during the Industrial Revolution, and Henry Ford standardized the 8-hour working day. So before that time, a lot of people worked from home. There's like weavers' cottages, or they worked on the farms, etc. And women were actually more equal participants in the workforce. The Industrial Revolution happened. It brought people into the cities. Then Henry Ford standardized that, but the machines were often too heavy for women to work. So women got pushed out of the workplace and into what was considered lower skilled jobs within those factories. So women started to be demoted during the Industrial Revolution and then were pushed out. So the work was designed when women weren't in the workplace, in the numbers that we are now. And then so they designed it thinking of somebody was at home. Then there was the marriage bar that was in force in a lot of organisations, which basically meant if a woman got married, they were then forced out of the workplace. They were forced to resign. And I think it was the Foreign Office still had the marriage bar in place in 1973. So there hasn't been that much time for women to say, no, this is what we want. This is what's going to work for us. So I guess that, the 1970s, women were starting to come back into the workplace, and there was the Equal Pay Act that came in, I think, in the 1970s. But I think because we were like sort of trying to come back into what was then a man's world, maybe we were trying to fit in a little bit more into the, with the shoulder pads and things like that. But now we're like a generation on, I think we've got to say, no, we don't want to work like that. This is not what's going to work for us. It needs to adapt now. And it needs to adapt to the modern world. It's not just about, flexible working in terms of children. People like, I know somebody that has one day at home because she's a writer. So she spends the day on writing. Technology allows us to work really whenever and wherever. I think the world needs to move on, but I think it's still, businesses, unfortunately, are still run by men of a certain age that were probably brought up and entered the workplace during, the time, sort of 1960s, 1970s. And that was a time there wasn't, PwC didn't even have female toilets on every floor until fairly recently.
I think it's important to say that times there are more opportunities for women than there have been before.
100%.
The problem that we have is that, when we progress our careers, we go into the workforce, we do really well, we get promoted because we're good at what we do. And then we're at an age where we want to have kids. And we're usually at an age where we want to have kids, where actually that's the time when your career's progressing, when you're getting those opportunities, and also your body clock's ticking, isn't it? So for me, personally, it was a choice between, either listening to that body clock and when you want to have a baby, or actually progressing my career with the organisation that I was with. And the reason I started my own business in the first place was because I knew it wasn't going to happen. I knew that when you had a baby in the recruitment business that I was working in, and I knew from looking at what was happening within the business, people who got into a senior position, actually, who wanted to work flexibly, who wanted to maybe work part-time hours, they were demoted.
Yeah, they were sidelined, and that happens all the time.
Yeah. So in the nicest possible
they just
way,
plod along.
wasn't the opportunity for them. You were told that they wanted to keep you in the business, but actually you couldn't do that job on part-time hours. That job was not available to you on part-time hours. Even if you were the best person for the job, you had to make the choice of either I'm going to spend this time with my kids and kind of lose out on that opportunity, or I'm going to have to take the opportunity and lose out on spending my time with the kids. So that was the option. And for me, it wasn't a good enough option. No. So I had my business 4 years before I had my child. And I started my business 4 years before I had my child because I knew that I needed to get out from where I was at that time and build something that worked for me before I had the opportunity.
And that could work around your family.
Absolutely. And a lot of the business owners that I speak to, small business owners who provide outsourced services like recruitment or finance or HR, whatever it may be, for organisations, a lot of them are working mums, and a lot of them started their own business purely for the fact that they were ambitious, they wanted to be successful, but they didn't have the opportunity once they'd had children to have any flexibility in the organisation that they were in. And I think to say here is that COVID has really shone a light on the flexible working can work.
It can work. And I think people are understanding, I've sent emails to people and I've got emails back saying, my working hours, my working days or whatever. And I mean, obviously I'm very understanding of that, but I think generally people are quite understanding other people have commitments and things will get responded to, maybe different times, which is good. But what you're saying is quite interesting about people being sidelined, because obviously there's a motherhood penalty, which is completely linked to what is known as the part-time penalty. So there actually isn't that much difference between men and women's salary, that women that are working full-time. The difference is when women go to work part-time, and that's where we get the gender pay gap.
It is,
the part-time penalty.
We've kind of been held back, and we've been held back for the reason that actually we had something else that was really important to also do. So when actually, your kids go to school, you might decide that you want to go to work, back to work full time. You find that you're behind. You're behind the people that actually previously maybe you were ahead.
Yeah, you've been leapfrogged ahead by people that are a lot more junior than you, and it's frustrating. And I think the big thing is that this country generally just doesn't value motherhood and unpaid care in the same way that it should do. Because since becoming a mother, I have refined so many skills all transferable back into paid employment. You know, time management, crisis management. There is nothing more stressful than having 2 toddlers in nappies, like with diarrhea nappies when you're out in public. I tell you, not any like stress, any board meeting after that is a work. Yeah, it's a walk in the park. You like network. It's actually you know, go into a baby group, you don't know a single soul, and you have to make friends. That's networking. But you know, when people do it in a paid environment, going to a network meeting or whatever, then that's viewed differently. But there are so many transferable skills you gain and develop in unpaid care that are really transferable back into paid employment. So I think that there's a lot of,
you know, time management, for instance.
Yeah.
If anyone's dealt with a screaming toddler in public,
It's stressful.
You can deal with difficult situations. You can manage stress. You can work on less sleep. There's so many skills that we gain from doing it. But I think what's also really, really important is that we shine a light on the fact that women who actually need that flexibility and work less hours, that doesn't mean that they're less productive.
No, 100%. Yeah, because we're going to talk about, so you're going to talk about how you structure your day, and then I can tell you about how I structure my day. And that's what we want to say, that productivity peaks at 30 hours a week. That is it. The most productive countries in the world are often in Scandinavia and Iceland, and their standard working week is 30 hours a week.
And to be honest, I don't think that most people probably even have a productive 30 hours a week, because if you're working a full-time working week, you know, just think how many hours people spend checking their emails. You know,
they go on Facebook, go on the news,
you know, speaking to their colleagues, etc. When actually, what we both know is that when you work less hours, it doesn't
focus
mean much done. It just means that you have to be more focused. You have to get this done in less time. So, and the annoying thing about this is most people that work part-time that I know will say to me that they do as much, if not more, than their full-time
colleagues, because the output's so much higher.
Exactly, but they don't get paid as much because they're working less hours. But I think what we both know is that by working less hours, actually, you become laser focused on what you need to get done. You don't give in to distractions. Say no to things that you shouldn't be doing because you need to get the job done. So when I had Izzy, she went to nursery at 9 months, and I worked 4 days a week. I think between about 8:30 and 4:30, because I was still breastfeeding. And again, breastfeeding comes into it, doesn't it? Because it's your right to breastfeed your child. It's good for them. It's healthy. You know, if you can do it, then amazing. But we shouldn't have to give it up to go back to work either. So I went back to work 4 days, and you better bloody believe that I put the work in those 4 days, because I still need to make as much money as I could in 5. But I told my clients I didn't work Fridays, and I told them why. And you know what? By telling them what you're doing and prioritizing that time with your kids, a lot of them will put parents too. A lot of them would like to do it. So actually, they respect those boundaries. But you know, you put the work in, and when you've had a baby and had a gap from work, actually, you have to put more work in to get your business or whatever you're doing back up to scratch. So that you can then start performing again. So Izzy went to school when she was 4. She went to school. She's a late birthday. She's August the 30th. So she went to school 3 days after she was 4. So suddenly my 4 days became school hours 5 days a week. Now, anyone that has worked school hours 5 days a week knows that it goes in the blink of an eye. So you have to be so organized. But guess what? Again, you know, compared to maybe...
Get it done.
Compared to the business owners that I know, usually the male business owners that have the flexibility to work 40, 50 hours a week, you know, I was still making as much money as them. I was still having, because I'm in recruitment, still having as many placements, still getting as many new clients. Everything that they were doing, I was just doing it in less time because I only had so much time to give. So some of that time that they may be wasting on stuff they didn't need to be doing, I was laser focused on the fact that I only had 25 hours a week. Therefore, I made those 25 hours a week count.
You made them count.
You can do that as a business owner, yet that's not recognised as much in the workplace.
And I don't know why, because do you know, I was chatting to somebody in a consultancy firm last week about it. And like you said, actually, because firms obviously do pay less for part-time because it's prorated, they get so much more output for those hours that they do pay. It's brilliant for them. It's a real win-win.
It's really frustrating for the employee in a way,
because there's just not always those opportunities. But yeah, if they actually embraced it and thought about all the benefits, you know, in terms of improved output, efficiency, productivity, employees are happier, they're a lot more loyal to the organization, they're brilliant advocates, less staff turnover, etc. You know, if they really thought about all those benefits, I think they would embrace it more, and it would be so. I would love to. Yeah.
You know, the pandemic has gone some ways towards shining a light on that, because suddenly everyone had to work at home, you know, and a lot of that was dads who actually hadn't had the opportunity either to take the kids to school or spend time.
Yeah. And I see so many dads on the school run, and you know, and it's lovely, and I hope that they actually don't want to give that up.
And there's so many dads that actually said, I would never have asked for it because it wasn't available to me, but actually it's made me a better employee. It's made me a happier person. It's made me a better dad. I want to continue doing this. And I think the important thing is now, as we start going back into the office, or as a lot of people start going back into the office, that they don't forget about it, that they don't forget that whilst they were worried that everyone was working from home, that productivity would go right down. In most businesses, that really wasn't the case.
It didn't,
You know, people put just so much work in, they got the results, but also they're happier people. You know, they're spending more time with their family, they're better parents, therefore they're actually better employees as well. But also people are grateful. People are really, really grateful for the opportunity to have that balance. And therefore, as you said, they're more loyal to their employer. You know, they do put the work in at the hours that they got, because they know that it's a privilege. You know, it's a privilege to take the kids to school and pick them up. Therefore, they don't want to lose that. And if that employer is giving them the opportunity to have that work-life balance, they're going to be a great employee. And I think that's something that we want to make sure isn't lost kind of post-pandemic as people start going back into the workplace.
And also, I know, do you know Pregnant Then Screwed? It's a charity. It's a charity to support women in the workplace, mothers in the workplace. But they're obviously concerned that there will be, you know, when everyone goes back, a two-tier workforce. There'll be, you know, the men will go back, and then the women that will, you know, a lot of firms are now offering on that you can work flexibly, and be more women that will take that flexible working, because they, you know, they, as we all know, it's nice to spend time with your kids. You want to do the school runs, etc. So I think it's really important, you know, if there are any men watching this, to embrace flexible working as well, because I think we do need men to do flexible and part-time working as much as women, definitely in the long run, because otherwise, unfortunately, I think there will still be this part-time penalty. So we need everybody to really get on board with it and embrace it. So I think that's something that would be good.
Fantastic. Yeah, it comes from the top, doesn't it? So if the actual owners of businesses and, you know, the senior managers are seen to be working in a flexible way and having that work-life balance as well, you know,
then everyone will do it. I think, because there's like, you know, they've had companies, haven't they said you can take as much annual leave as you want, and then people don't take it. So it needs to come from the top. You need to see senior people embracing flexible working, and I think more junior people would then feel comfortable to do that as well, and then that would reduce this two-tier workforce that I know some women's charities are concerned may happen after the pandemic.
I think the operative word right there was comfortable, because as we said, there's a load of dads that actually would never have asked for it. They would never have asked for it, because maybe they're not the primary carer. Maybe they would have thought that the answer would have been no, because, you know, dads aren't seen as the primary carer. And even if they would have loved to pick their kids up and you know, do everything that they wanted to do, now that they've experienced it, they're going to want to continue experiencing it. But are they going to go back into a workforce where actually it's offered, but they aren't expecting people to take it up, and they don't dare take it up, and actually we end up in 12 months time
back to where we were. And that would be awful. That would be just disaster for everybody, I think. So so I hope that everybody continues, you know, with the whole flexible working, embraces it. You know, and I know that some people want to go back to the office, and there are benefits to going back to the office, but, you know, definitely if people can do more of these hybrid working weeks, so good. And it's good for our children as well.
Absolutely. But it's not just about kids either, is it? It's about, you know, having the flexibility to go for a run, go for a walk, have fresh air at lunch, you know, all the other kind of health benefits. Loads
of people bought dogs, haven't they?
Exactly. Not spending hours and hours in a car every day if you don't need to. So the workplaces that have realised that actually, if I don't physically need people in the office all the time, whilst there are benefits to people being together, you know, maybe hybrid working model would actually be better for my staff. And the more you look after your staff, the more your business will grow. And I think that's what we need to focus on. So tell us a bit more about investing in women. I know Nama, I hope I've pronounced your name right, is wanting to know what your website is. Tell us a little bit more about the idea behind, because obviously essentially it's a job board, but
it's a job board.
A bit more of an idea, the idea behind the platform and what you're hoping to achieve with it.
Yeah, so the platform came about following my own I was made redundant in September. So I was on maternity leave, then got made redundant, and I was lucky enough before I got made redundant to be working 3 days a week. So I was part-time, and I wanted to continue working part-time, and there was just no part-time jobs available. So I went on, I'm a recruiter as well, went on Reed back in the autumn. There was 940 full-time jobs and less than 30 part-time jobs. And even when you clicked into the part-time jobs, most of them weren't even in recruitment anyway. They were just like random. They'd been like stuffed in there. So I came quite quickly to realize I was basically being forced to make a choice, which was what happens to a lot of women. I was being forced. If I wanted to continue my career at the level I was at, I would probably have to go back full-time, find another full-time position. If I wanted part-time, I was looking at roles that would be admin, that were, £10 an hour or whatever. So I thought, no, there has to be another way. So first of all, it was self-employment for me to fit something around my family like you. But then now it's become more of a higher mission to educate businesses on the benefits of part-time and flexible working, and why it works for them and for employees. And so therefore that is the idea behind investing in women. So it's a jobs board with obviously an educational element to it. It's a social enterprise basically, and it aims to, as I said, connect forward-thinking employers within financial and professional services. So that's banking, accounting, legal, insurance, consulting, fintech, real estate, businesses within those sectors, with individuals looking for flexible and part-time work, and any type of work that those businesses would employ. And it's launching 7th of June.
And I think one of the reasons that you specifically chose those sectors, other than the fact that that's where you had your experience, was because you identified those sectors as being the places where that wasn't happening as much as it should be. But also you really wanted to shine a light on the pay gap, didn't you?
There's the gender pay gap.
Based upon obviously the experience that they have, and the fact that just because someone needs flexible working doesn't mean that they aren't worth that same amount of money.
No, they're not. 100%. I'm doing this for my friends, my sister, and ultimately for my daughters, because I don't want them in 30 years' time to have to make the decision that I know me and all my friends have had to make. So that's why I'm doing it.
And at the end of the day, I think people in the past have seen it as a choice. If you want to be able to take your kids to school, that's your choice. But actually, you have to give this up. I don't think it should be seen as a choice. I think it should.
I think it's. I wrote a post about it before, and I feel like it's a sort of a punishment. That's quite a punishment mentality, and we shouldn't be punished. We've given birth or whatever in our circumstances to the next generation. But like I said, there's other people that are doing fantastic things as well that aren't necessarily parents, like the writer. That's obviously adding to the society in another way. There's people that volunteer and do community things as well. So there's people that are giving so much outside of paid employment that is definitely all transferable back into the workplace. So we shouldn't be valued any less.
We're going to be shining a light over the next couple of weeks on women that are doing great things. You're also going to be shining light on businesses.
There's some really good businesses, I feel like I've knocked businesses, but there's some brilliant businesses. I'm going to shine a light on. There's a company called Ricardo Energy, and they let people, work. Flexible working is their complete default, and they let people work their contracted hours when they want. And they've really consulted with their female employees on what have been the previous barriers to the workplace and how they can help remove those barriers. So there are some companies.
And I think we also need to realise that there is a reason why people now have gender targets in their businesses. And that's because something has been going wrong, and something has been going wrong for a long time. We shouldn't need them. It shouldn't even be a thing. And hopefully when our daughters go into the workforce, it won't be. And hopefully investing in women, will have a part in that. And I think that's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Yeah, well, you're helping. So thank you.
My absolute pleasure and privilege. So for anyone watching, Investing in Women is launching 7th of June. It's going to be amazing. And if you are a woman who has had an experience of what we're talking about, joining the conversation, get in touch with Liz. You can find her at Elizabeth Willetts, Willetts.
TTS, it's a double T at the end.
Double T. And I'll bob that in comments as well. Please do get in touch with Liz. She'd love you to share your story. If you are a business that kind of really resonates with what we're talking about and you want to get involved, get in touch with Liz. If you're a business that's already doing it, that's paving the way, that's aspirational, get in touch with Liz.
Because we're shining stories on businesses as well that are doing fantastic.
Absolutely. And the one thing we haven't mentioned is not only is it great for the business and their employees, it's great for your employer brand as well. It's great for attracting new staff. It's great for your business in general. So if you have a story to share it with us. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for listening. If you were watching on the replay and you didn't get a chance to ask a question, give your input, please do let us know in comments. As I said, I will tag Liz into the post when it gets reposted for the replay. And please do connect with her, follow her, and contact her if you want to get on board with her mission.
Yeah.
And I look forward to cheering Investing in Women on when it launches on the 7th of June.
Thank you. Thanks.